Last of Us 2. A critically acclaimed game with 105 positive reviews, with 8 mixed reviews and 0 negative reviews. Just based on the critics' view, this game should have been the biggest game this summer. But it actually bombed. Users rated it as 29,509 positive, 3,449 mixed, and 32,030 negative. The player base didn't like the game. Some didn't like the gameplay. It was monotonous and repetitive. But the overwhelming number of people didn't like the story. We will be talking about Last of Us 1 and Last of Us 2, so beware for the spoilers up ahead. Last of Us was developed by Naughty Dog, released on the 14th of June 2013. To keep everything simple, it was a game that took everyone by surprise. No one really saw it coming. It took the internet quickly by storm. Animations, let's plays, and even reviews started popping out of the woodworks in tribute to this game. In the first Last of Us game, we follow the story of Joel, a man who lost his daughter during the first wave of the infection. Cutting to a few years later, we find that he's a smuggler with his friend Tess, and they are tasked to bring a girl to Washington. This girl is named Ellie. Later on, we find out that she's actually immune to this infection. Along the way, they bond, grow, and even evolve as characters. Joel acting as Ellie's father/guardian, and Ellie acting as Joel's pseudo-daughter. When we finally get to Washington, we find that the Firefly is a group of people who were hoping to make this cure for the infection using Ellie's immunity, but it turns out that it's at the cost of killing her. Joel, finally finding something that made him human once again, goes off and saves Ellie. He ravaged to the hospital to save Ellie, and then promptly after they left, they went to go live with Joel's brother Tommy. Now heading into Last of Us 2 territories, released after waiting 7 years on June 19, 2020. 4 years later, we start with Ellie and Joel on the rocks. Now, playing as Ellie, we go through what seems to be her daily schedule. We are introduced to 2 new characters right off the bat, Jess and Dina, as they go through clearing infected around the area. We suddenly cut to a new character, Abby. She seems to be looking for someone, but with the help of her friends, looking around a little bit, they found a small city. Suddenly cutting back to Ellie and Dina, they're in the middle of a snowstorm. They seek refuge inside a building. Cutting once again back to Abby, she finds herself running from the infected, being saved by Joel and Tommy. They working together to get out of the bundle of trouble they're in. They make it quickly back to Abby's hideout with her friends. After some talking, they suddenly attack Joel and Tommy. We suddenly cut back to Ellie, Dina, and Jess as they go off into the woods, splitting off to cover more ground. Ellie finding Abby's hideout, Ellie quickly finds Joel being beaten to death, and Ellie tries to stop her. Abby killing Joel, and Ellie gets knocked out. Ellie and Dina go on a quest to avenge Joel, but it turns out Tommy was one step ahead of them. Heading to Seattle, Ellie spent day 1, day 2, and day 3 of Seattle looking for Abby. They soon find out that Dina is pregnant on day 1 of Seattle. After killing a few people and finding Jess along the way, Ellie enters the aquarium to find out where Abby is, but she's not there. After Ellie killing more people enters Jess and Tommy, the 3 of them head back to their hideout, and suddenly they were attacked. Here is the point when we find out that Abby's father is actually one of the Fireflies that was supposed to perform surgery on Ellie. Abby waking up day 1 in Seattle after Joel's death. Now we play as Abby for the remainder of the game, and this is a problem, but I'll explain why in a little bit. She goes on some time patrolling, later on saves a bunch of people, saves a kid named Lev, finds out that someone was killing her friends. With the map and the help of Lev, Abby is able to confront Ellie, them beating each other up, and nothing comes of it. Abby and Ellie both live on. Oh, Jesse died, but it doesn't really matter that much. Dina and Ellie end up living on a farm. One day, Tommy shows up and tells Ellie that he found where Abby was hiding. Turns out, Abby and her friend Lev made their way to California in hopes of finding a Firefly outpost. Cutting back to Abby, seems like she was ambushed before she could get anywhere. Then we cut back to Ellie, hunting down Abby. Finally, after more fighting, we finally fight Abby as Ellie. And we lose some fingers, but once again, nothing comes of it. Ellie, after hunting down Abby for so long, lets Abby go. Next, we see Ellie back at the farm, but Dina and the baby are gone. Ellie sits down and the game ends. Disappointing for sure, because after all the time the player invested with Ellie, Ellie's technically the one who lost. She gave up everything for revenge and nothing happened. Now, remember when I said playing as Abby was gonna be a problem? Well, that's because we don't like her. Like at all. She killed our favorite character at the beginning of the story, and the story tried to force us to like her, but we couldn't because there was already this bitter aftertaste in our mouth. She was supposed to be another protagonist per se, but we just didn't care about her because we couldn't care about her. She was so far on the villain side that we decided not to care about her. So, let's rewind. Let's see how we can fix the story of The Last of Us 2. Firstly, let's set up some rules. I won't allow myself to change anything major, like gameplay mechanics, add or subtract characters. Starting off, let's talk about storytelling. Normally in storytelling, we have this formula called the witch's hat, where there's a start, rising action, climax, falling action, then the end. Naturally speaking, of course, this is the most common form of storytelling, but, now this is a big but here, in FoxBunny Studios and my personal books that I've written, I tend to use the storytelling of the camelback. Start, rising action, first climax, falling action, the lowest point, rising action, second climax, then the end. For fixing The Last of Us, we'll be using the camelback form of storytelling because it fits the double protagonist agenda really well. With all that out of the way, now let's work on fixing The Last of Us 2's story. And let's start off with the intro. The intro with Joel talking to Tommy and telling him what happened in the first game is a perfect way of us reconnecting the players with Joel. It allows us to help the players be refamiliarized with our favorite character, Joel, and Tommy, and the state of where everything's in and what happened after the last few moments of the first game. We follow this intro all the way up to when Joel is telling Ellie that he's going to teach her how to play guitar. Then we fade and go into the next part. Fading into Abby, we see that she's being chased by a lot of infected. She comes close to dying, but Joel pops out of the woodworks and saves her. They, running away into the building, slamming the door, wakes up to Abby on the first day back in Seattle. Abby's arc will continue, following the witch's hat formula of storytelling, as we go through the days in Seattle. We go through Abby's story as normal, storylines keeping up with Lev and the other protagonists of Abby's story and her friend, but we keep the payoff of Abby's father being a firefly later on. This establishes our storyline of Day 1, the start, Day 2, the rising action, Day 3, the climax, falling action, and our lowest point. Now, we finally get to play as Ellie, but not in the present times just yet. Our first encounter with them is at the museum. I placed it here because it's important to reignite the passion that people feel for Joel and Ellie. Their dynamic duo and the way they treated each other really would show how well they did with each other, and it reignites the want for more Joel and Ellie. Now we cut to the modern days, where once again Joel and Ellie were a little bit on the rocks. Afterwards, Abby kills Joel. We go through the game as normal, redistributing some of the flashbacks here and there, to accommodate for the museum being the first time we get to play as Joel and Ellie. After everything, finally, when the big showdown's gonna happen, we once again go back to Ellie and Abby in the theater, ready for their showdown. Now we can reveal why Abby did what she did by explaining that her father was one of the fireflies that Joel promptly murdered, and Ellie was already on the rocks because she found out that Joel kept everything a secret from her and actually murdered a bunch of fireflies. We as Abby, once again, fight Ellie. After beating her, we play as Ellie as she enjoys her life on the farm. This is when we cut to Dina and the baby with Ellie and the reconciliation of Joel and Ellie. The end. We can cut it there. This keeps everything simple, and most importantly, this doesn't leave a bitter taste in our mouth about Abby, because at the start of the game, we don't know what she did yet. All we know is she's a character, and she seems important, and we know that she was saved by Joel. With that, we could assume that maybe Joel saved her, and she went on to live her life, but we can't really tell the audience immediately that she's the one that kills Joel. So establishing our storyline as Ellie, we go the intro as our start, Joel's death as our rising action, the following days in Seattle are continued as the rising action and climax, losing the fight to Abby is our falling action, and living on the farm is our end. By placing Abby's arc first, we can see who she is and how she changes. The friends and loved ones she gets to know, we see her conquer her fears and try to be a better person. By placing Ellie's arc second, we get to feel the anger that she feels after Joel's death, quickly getting set on the path of rage, revenge, and we know who to hate, who is Abby. We see her struggle, try to come to terms with everything, but most importantly, she has to pick between two people. The person she wants to murder, and Dina, the person that she actually loves. And by placing Ellie and Joel's reconciliation at the very end, we as the players get to feel that Ellie's choice of just staying with Dina was right. Because it allows us to finally remember Joel as he was, and he would probably not want us to go all murder hobo on Abby. With everything said and done, everything at the end of the day comes down to the keyword of motivation, both for the characters and the players. Abby wanted Joel dead. Revenge was her motivation. Ellie wants Abby dead. Revenge was her motivation. The players want Abby dead. Revenge was our motivation. So when we finally stepped into the shoes of Abby in the original story, we had no motivation to play her because we didn't like her. Our motivation was to hate her. So it put us in this odd predicament. It put a little bitter taste in our mouth after hating Abby for so long and being forced to play as her. We as the player base wanted to play as Ellie and Joel again, considering that we waited 7 years for this new installment of our favorite game. But if we keep asking for the same thing, when does it end? And how crazy will the leaps in storytelling be the next time around? If we kept on asking for the same thing, and people wanted Joel to still be alive, then I would say they would set the story in Europe, as Joel and Ellie find a new batch of resistant members that want to make a cure once again, but at the expense of Ellie's life, and Joel saves her again, then the point becomes repetitive and you wouldn't want to play it because you know the story. At least this way with the newer installment, we were able to experience a story and we were really truly unprepared for what would have happened. The critics were right in rating the game so highly, but the player base felt like they were cheated out of playing the game they wanted by Joel dying so quickly. Anyways, the people at Naughty Dog told a story. And when you think of it, it was a good story. They really made us hate Abby, even if we've never met her before. But the thing is, we had to play as her, and that's where it all kind of fell apart. We didn't want to play as someone we hated, simply put. And the people at Naughty Dog have already caught so much heat for this topic. But I'm not here to start a fight, and I just want to throw my hat into the ring and talk about something I'm very passionate about. If there is anyone out there who wants to talk about this story, I would love to hear what your points are and what you have to say. So let's all respectively leave our comments down below and tell me what you think of how I reconstructed The Last of Us 2 story.
If somehow the Lord gave me a second chance at that moment, I would do it all over again. If I ever were to lose you, I'd surely lose.
I don't think I can ever forgive you for that.
Everything I have found here, I'm not found by myself.
I would like to try.
Try and sometimes you'll succeed to make this man of me. All my stolen missing parts, I've no need for any more. 'Cause I believe.
Okay.
And I believe, 'cause I can see our future
See you around.
days. Yeah. Days of you